What's up, guys? This is Mr. Eldridge, and in today's video, we're going to look at the aspect of foreign diplomacy during the first two administrations in American history. So before we look into the administrations, we have to look at revolutionary France. One of the complications experienced by Washington and his staff was the difficulty in maintaining stable, positive relationships with foreign nations. Many foreign treaties and agreements were frequently subject to change as governments came and went through democratic or revolutionary means. In 1789, France, of course being a close ally to the United States during the Revolutionary War, deposed the French monarch and Estates General, their representative assembly, which had formed agreements with the young United States. While initially supportive, the United States soon came to oppose the French revolutionary government, especially after the radical takeover in 1792. This made interactions and agreements between France and the United States kind of awkward from 1792 onward, as attitudes and judgments changed between the two nations and their rotating door of diplomats and other personnel. You also have what's called the Janae Affair. While attempting to maintain neutrality in the conflict between France and Great Britain in 1793, issues arose with the French diplomat to the United States, Citizen Janae. In an attempt to harm British commerce, Janae was actively recruiting American sailors and ships to act as privateers against the British. When Washington demanded he halt his actions, as they violated the terms of neutrality in the war between France and Britain, Janae continued to defy Washington's wishes. Once Washington discovered he was continuing to recruit Americans, he demanded the French revolutionary government recall Janae. When the revolutionary government recalled Janae and likely would have sentenced him to death, Washington allowed him to seek asylum in the United States to avoid execution. He eventually married an American and became a United States citizen. Another example of diplomatic tensions between the United States and France, of course, is the XYZ Affair. The affair began when 3 U.S. diplomats were sent to resolve privateering issues between the two nations that were threatening to break out into war. Issues soon arose when the French Foreign Minister Talleyrand required personal bribes and loans to France before even formally beginning the negotiations. Although Talleyrand had already been collecting bribes from other nations, the 3 diplomats sent by the United States were insulted by the gesture, and 2 left without negotiating. Once the dispatches of the returned diplomats were published, Federalists as well as non-Federalists were outraged. Publication substituted X, Y, and Z for the names of the French diplomats. It's where we get the name the XYZ Affair. What ensued was an informal state of warfare between the United States and France that's often known as the Quasi-War from 1798 to 1800, which took place mostly at sea. You also have to look at Spanish New Orleans. Diplomatic relationships with Spain were tumultuous in the 1790s. The Spanish benefited by reasserting control of New Orleans in 1763 and Spanish Florida following the Treaty of Paris in 1783. The port of New Orleans was reopened to Americans at a much reduced 15% tariff rate and allowed settlers west of the Appalachian Mountains to use its ports. This was important because the Appalachian Mountains made it nearly impossible to stay economically connected with the East Coast. However, disputes over borders in the New Orleans region and in Florida in the 1790s would strain American and Spanish relations. Spain responded by openly allowing hostile American Indian factions, fugitive slaves, and outlaws to seek asylum in Spanish Florida. as well as tightening their grip on the vital port town of New Orleans. Domestically, the United States struggled to coexist with the American Indian populations on the frontier. It is very important to note that the American government considered Native Americans almost like foreign nations. And so it is important that we understand that distinction. Many American Indian tribes, such as the Creek and the Cherokee, were supplied or instigated by rival European powers such as Britain and Spain. For example, the Royal Governor of Canada openly called for American Indians to continue resisting to the United States in the Northwest Indian Wars. That, of course, being from 1785 to 1795. The Spanish did the same thing in the Southeast, offering Spanish Florida as a haven for belligerent American Indians, convicts, and fugitive slaves. While the Americans would win the war against the American Indians in the Northwest Territory with the signing of the Treaty of Greenville, hostilities would continue with the Southeast. These hostilities were largely spurred on by the Spanish as they encouraged the Creek tribe and their allies to violate the Treaty of New York, a previous peaceful settlement between the United States government and the Creek peoples, and supported attacks and raids against American settlers. Thank you so much for paying attention to this video. If you have not subscribed to this channel, please go ahead and do so. Thank you so much, and you have a great day.